So the way I want to build this whole brand of Zo, I want to give it back to the community. And in today's time, I don't see any other way to build a brand with the community unless you bring Web3 into it. When I look at Web3, I look at it like internet, that it's gonna penetrate any and all industries. It's a matter of time.
Building and nurturing an engaged community is absolutely important for any crypto founder or any DeFi project. We're going to be having a fun conversation with someone who has built communities both in IRL and on chain as a serial entrepreneur. We will speak to Dharamveer, the founder of ZoWorld, and learn about communities and how not to make your community an exit liquidity option. There's a lot more that can happen. I'm Srikumar Misra, your host for Alpha Unashed. So I think roughly around I can't probably almost year and a half back, and I do travel to Bangalore often, and obviously stay at the hotels most of the time, unless some relative or friend who's feeling kind towards me, so specifically invite me over to stay at their home. Otherwise, it's always a hotel. So once I remember, I and my wife Rashima, we were traveling, and we said let's stay somewhere offbeat, and someone had suggested uh, ZoHouse, and
Wow.
we stayed there. It's different matter. I think between the two of us, we lifted the average age of ZoHouse probably with all the everyone else who was there. But it was fantastic out there for the 2 days we stayed, and the buzz. So tell us about ZoWorld and how did you get there? First, tell us about ZoWorld.
It's so I've been a serial entrepreneur. I started and sold a gaming studio for a 2008 to 2012 journey. Then started off with Zostel. I'm still the co-founder and CEO at Zostel. And over there, what we realized is that our core is community. We're very good at understanding, how to curate them, how to create environments and real estate that sort of automatically filters the kind of crowd and that allows the community to breed differently. And we pushed the borders. We had already played around with different products post the hostel. This time we just pushed on the edge of what we are in the travel lifestyle network, in sort of community and our properties and everything. And we thought that hey, what should be the best club worldwide for the 21st century. And it can be sort of like a north star for the ecosystem. So that's what the ZoWorld is largely about. We like to believe that it's a whole reality in which there are thousands of Zostels, and you have a local friend in the ZoWorld ecosystem anywhere and everywhere you go. For now, ZoWorld is largely, let's say, the whole ecosystem of everything we like to call. And then this top tier membership that is exclusive to ZoHouse. So somebody might have
Mhm.
told you that there is a ZoHouse. Otherwise, it's not possible to book it on any sort of a online public platform. So we designed it in a certain fashion that people come for events, activities, as a different sort of your third place in your lifestyle beyond your home and office, like a clubhouse, but a new age clubhouse for the 21st century, and for, let's say, nerds, who are comfortable with AI, who are comfortable with VR, AR. So we took that, if we are able to attract at least those crowd, and then you can trickle down. So it was largely about creating a it's sort of like connected, because I am very deeply technical, and there's a nerd deep inside me. So the way I want to build this whole brand of Zo, I want to give it back to the community. And in today's time, I don't see any other way to build a brand with the community unless you bring Web3 into it, right? Unless you are willing to build a sort of like a protocol, or decentralize yourself. It's very tough. So this was sort of like the first steps that at least bring the community together. We experimented, And as we go along, would love to share more details on the experiment. But that's where the ZoHouse came together, that you want to bring a top tier membership worldwide. Hey, if you have houses that make you feel like home anywhere and everywhere you go in the world, is a good starting, or a north star to even aim towards over the whole decade, in fact. So that's where we
Mm-hmm.
started off. Bangalore was a home ground, so we
Mm-hmm.
perfected the MVP over there.
Okay, staying there. So ZoWorld is
The
the
ecosystem.
community, the ecosystem, and ZoHouse is like kind of the
It's the top tier,
uh,
top. It's like the temple of this community or the cult. It's like the
right. And
top tier.
ZoHouse is obviously an actual what, like a club space, or is it like a how do you look at it? It's we'll come to the community part, but it's a place for the crypto tech community to, or folks to kind of stay, be at home, connect with other folks.
Right. And then even helpful for themselves to get introduced to other people. It's sort of like an incubator as well, honestly. There have been many projects that would have got funded or introduced to their investors or co-founders during events or just hangouts. At that's where the best deals happen, when you're not trying to do a deal, you are actually trying to know folks, right? So ZoHouse is that sort of an environment that breaks those boundaries for builders to dream boldly and imagine wildly. And so yeah, I think those are probably the key factors, and then you rightly summed it up. So anybody who wants to build a protocol or does anything web3, and that live in the metaverse, you need real sybil free users, right? You want
Hmm.
to interact with real people. You want to make sure that you have largely that some sort of a community. So I had that strength with the real estate experience with Zostel. So when I look at web3, I look at it like internet, that it's gonna penetrate any and all industries. It's a matter of time, right? So every industry entrepreneurs will learn how to leverage blockchain, or let's say the technologies of AI and blockchain for their own competitive advantages, right? And in that fashion, we decided that we can add a lot of value for people who want to organize that. So we are doing, let's say, the Solana hackathon this time. Very It's the third time we'll possibly do that. We're very good at making sure that the IRL communities can come together, and large trust building exercise, right? Between new users to old users to collaborate. And it's expanded, be it Aptos, be it Polygon, be it Bera. We work with everybody for that. And everybody has been a founder of ZoWorld and helping us towards our vision. So
Hmm. Okay, all right. So from when I got into crypto and DeFi as a user, as you know, which was a little over 4 years now, and then sort of DeFi especially spoke to me at such a deep level, both philosophically and as a
it's
technology.
beautiful.
I got totally immersed in exploring it, ultimately realizing that, well, this is what I want to spend the next chunk, important part of my life, building and creating something. But at that point in time, I came across the word community in a very different context of how, as a builder and as protocols and crypto DeFi projects, the term community was very different, and in some sense has come around to redefine how everyone talks about community today. And especially, I'm I also come from a very different. This is my third avatar, so if I look at my past two avatars and the last startup which I company which I founded, we would think about the ecosystem or customers and um, um, stakeholders and all of that stuff. Community as a word was not used very, what. very often, or in the sense that we are used to in crypto. So how did it's interesting how you reframed from building essentially a real estate, hotel, hospitality space, and targeted at a young audience, which was Zostel, and
Right.
bridging that to community. So how did you think about community back then, and as you bridged it into the Web3 version of it?
Right. So, interesting. I honestly clearly see that we at Zostel, what worked for us was the traveler community, let's say, the
Hmm.
solo tripsters, who are themselves seeking truth. So there was a common factor in terms of people who were, we used to call it live it now, in that fashion, people who are following their heart. And just, they would stay at a hostel and then they would quit their jobs. That, hey, I am very sure that I don't want to do that, post doing such conversations and meeting such great friends in the common room, just a setting. So in our case, honestly, Shri, the Zostel business was very much community first. And so, I actually made a comics on Steemit. It was a blockchain even before Ethereum.
Hmm.
And I was looking to buy Ethereum after the DAO hack. The price had fallen to $7 or $4, in fact. So I was around, but it was even more of a infrastructure and a tech play. And being an entrepreneur, you realize what are your strengths, right? So the way I see it is that it's a very nascent industry. Bitcoin itself is getting established. That's the beginning of any sort of value on the internet or a metaverse for that matter, right? And then you have some sort of an infrastructure with, let's say, Ethereum or Polygon or Solana, right? These are all the second layer of still the infrastructure. Like a country has army, and then electricity and roads, and then maybe an individual like Zostel or ZoHouse can come and open a restaurant or a cafe or a dhaba, right? So we are very early. That's where I see that people are still figuring out how the things that are supposed to be protocol and token, how they themselves, how the DAOs are working over there. And here I am, pushing the boundaries. The way I see it is that I shouldn't decide. So the way Zostel works is that it's a 100% local entrepreneurs or a franchisee owned, franchisee operated business, right? So I ran for 4 years all the business myself. Then we made standard SOPs and guidelines. And today we work with almost 75 entrepreneurs who are themselves, who bought a piece of land or leased a property. And they understand their region, and we are the ones who enable them. And we know that this works supremely well, right? Because no matter if I try to say that hey, I'm the best one who can tell you about Singapore, it is only Shri who can do that, right? And there's no way that I can share my incentives with Shri unless I decide to embrace it in the fundamentals of the business, right? So if you today download the Zostel app and you even register, you will see some dollar zo happening over there. So we have a token that we have already minted on base. We are giving it like a loyalty. Even we are like close to 100,000 users we might have given it, because we are just sticking to first principles. And that's sort of how we launched our NFTs as well. You won't believe, we launched at 0.01 ETH. Then we sold some of them out of the 1100. Then we launched at 0.08 ETH. Then we launched at 0.25 ETH. Then we launched at 1.11 Ethereum, right? And every time people told me that you need to burn what is remaining. And I told people that hey, I still want to invite more founders for the vision, because I look at everybody who's holding and being, so with our NFT collection is called as founders of ZoWorld, right? And it's traded up to 2 Ethereum. Right now it's at close to zero point 0.9. And 500 top tier founders, builders completely chilling out. And the whole experiment of me just welcoming more people to the community and giving them whitelist, more than anything of a trade just coming up. We have seen that we are able to create value in the blockchain, or let's say in air, with the magic internet money, for that matter. So I feel that if we are truly genius, we should be able to accelerate the ZoWorld vision, that people in Tokyo, people in Singapore, they are finding real estate properties for Zostel, or willing to host other travelers, or just be there while other people are traveling, be there in terms of chat and support. And I want to give them dollars. Even if I go out there and raise $100 million to build a global network, it still costs even more to form 50 country subsidiaries, whereas I feel that it's
Hmm.
more efficient to even leverage that and build a decentralized brand with the community. So I did take
So
a bit more
how
extension, but yeah.
hmm.
Yeah.
So how is this community ecosystem that you're building, not just on chain but actually off chain, with the likes of ZoHouse, and I understand, um beyond the Bangalore one, you got the second ZoHouse in San Francisco.
Yeah, yeah. In
It,
San Francisco
okay.
as well.
So you've got that there. How do you connect the on-chain, off-chain world, and what are your sort of properties there? So you've got a NFT collection, and you got the did you say Zo token? So what utilities do these serve, and what's your sort of roadmap for how this will pan out?
So we look at the NFT collection as my fellow co-founders for the vision. So we eat our own shit. The Zo houses are only accessible to the founders of the world. And along
Hmm.
with that, we are expanding, let's say, our community hostel network. So that's our
Hmm.
core business. And Zo houses are largely our top tier community give back, or let's say even more, Web3 tech oriented, builder oriented, something that's coming in. And as I said, that we are not very hard and fast then in terms of what are the utility or why you should buy the tokens. We are looking to give these tokens, and we look at it like a decade long journey. That right now our part is that we need to give $zo and acknowledge those who are contributing in the ZoWorld ecosystem, whether they are opening a property, whether they are traveling with us. Just
Hmm.
look at them like a loyalty within the ecosystem, rather than a pump and a dump or a liquidity sale. And value shall accrue while it happens. So, and then in the real world, the way I see it is, life's a game. The way our Hinduism or the way the world of Maya works is that what we are trying to do at ZoWorld is that it should be fun. The trip that we want to be as your trip partner, so we like to call it Zobu is your trip partner while you're traveling. But the real trip is the life's trip. You came alone, you'll go along. Along the way you might choose different paths, right? So you like the Web3 path. There was a whole universe out there for you in different avatars, but in your this karma, you are probably building a lot more. And similarly, I find my calling in, let's say, building this sort of a global lifestyle network, just helping the species realize we are much more alike than different. And probably that's gonna be even more important as we head even more towards AI and everything. So so that network, that's where our deeper philosophical roots originate from. That that's where humanity having a local friend worldwide. And so to make this life as a game, you need to make just traveling and events and activities that fun itself. So we're trying to make that part of a game, be it a Pokemon Go, or be it location based event attendance in Zo houses. So that's probably what we are looking to launch in the next couple of quarters. And maybe there again, $zo incentives to go to
Hmm.
events. So if you're an AI builder, we'll possibly incentivize you to go to an AI event in Singapore, and we'll give you some $zo for that. Just living a life that is worthwhile for you.
Hmm. So from your Zostel, that's still continuing, and obviously you've kind of moved on where you say it's a kind of more decentralized structure to it of how that's going on. But then you've got the ZoWorld.
that
Okay.
you should
And is
possibly.
Zostel sort of part of the Web3 integration that you've done with ZoWorld as well,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
completely different? Okay.
No, that's what I was trying to explain. Even if you download the Zostel app right now, you'll get an NFT minted as a citizen of the ZoWorld. You'll get your own
Okay.
passport, like a network state. It'll be like a ZoWorld. It'll be your KYC driven. So our idea is that we do the real world KYC and platform with Zostels, and then others can have civil free users on which they can
Hmm.
do events and activities and local platforms, whether whoever wants to do it. So it's deeply integrated
Okay.
in that fashion.
Hmm.
We abstracted the Web3 layer, but I think that's what technology should be.
Hmm. So I remember at ZoHouse in Bangalore that there were several NFT collections on the walls, on screens, which kind of made the whole space very vibey. Of course, I think at that point in time, I think NFTs were still a buzz, and somehow, I mean, those of us in the space, we appreciate, as digital art, uh, NFTs as digital art is just one expression or extension of them. I mean, NFTs have a lot more utility in terms of
Absolutely,
establishing
it's a technology, right?
identity.
So yeah.
Absolutely. So however, as in terms of building a vibey community, and you have this the NFT collection as well. How do you how do you look at bringing in more utility to the NFT collection that has been distributed? Can you take it to a different level altogether as such?
So, we look at them like membership, or to our
Mm-hmm.
top tier club, right? So that's why at least they have some sort of a utility beyond being an art experiment. They're not PFPs. Our NFTs are very first principle led. They have a destination, they have a culture. They are supposed to invite people of different passion and cultures to be a founder of the Zo world. We have a grand vision to see the whole world as one Vasudev Kutumbakam, and we need other people to share that thing together with us in that fashion. And so our NFTs, then I truly believe that NFTs shouldn't try that hard. In fact, nobody should. You should take care about your price that is there, but to hard engineer, let's say a supply or something like that, really doesn't do fundamentally justice to the technology. So I like to look at them. Okay, hey, you are a founder of the Zoo world. Beyond that, you have to start contributing. You must understand that your opportunity is to build this thing with me, rather than just sitting on laurels that, hey, I'll keep sitting on this NFT and it'll go to 10 Ethereum and I'll get an airdrop. That's not what we are expecting at ZoWorld.
Okay. And having this sort of deep and varied experience of building communities in multiple facets as a serial entrepreneur in very different businesses, and now in Web3, for young founders in this space who are launching their projects and in their go to market plans, community is always a big objective. What would be sort of two three key thoughts or ideas you'd like to sort of share, which they can learn from, in terms of how they can create from sort of zero, from a zero base a community, and then nurture it, build it, scale it?
Give to the people, I think, be. So there's the whole idea of community is there's no one way that's shortcut. It's about every day showing up. Community is what you do every day, then you attract that sort of a people, so you can't fake it a lot, right? So you have to be a part of what you are selling. You have to live it, breathe it. So I'm myself a total DJ, and I lived in ZoHouse for the whole year. I will say, perfected every square feet of it. And the same with Zostel. We literally ran the properties ourselves for more than close to half a decade. And so that's there. And then just do more events, interact with your users, be as real as you can, show up every day, be a founder of the ZoWorld, be leverage as much other communities as you can, that are with the same principles. So I think that's where my 2 cents will be. And just be prepared for the grind. There's no shortcut, so it's been a decade now, right? And even with ZoHouse, it's been 3 years. So it's about showing every day and then building that trust slowly with the community.
Okay. I mean, those are very simple, but actually, three deep, clear ideas. Rather, I mean, the first one, just to summarize again for the listeners, it's about staying real. It's kind of being authentic, and not just trying to ape something in your
Marketing. Yeah.
community. Yeah. Second thing is about really showing up and being there with the community, yeah, just showing up in different forms. And third is about leveraging other communities. I think pretty important for not just somebody who's starting from zero, but for anyone building a community in the crypto web3 space. Actually, I think all these three aspects are crucial.
Yeah. Pretty first principle, right? So do that,
Mhm.
rest will fall in place.
Mhm. What's that one? What's that one moment which really sort of made you um, made you excited about sort of the all the time and effort that you put in to build ZoWorld. So what was that one moment? And on this podcast, I celebrate one of the moments in the founder's life. And so what's that we should be celebrating and toasting to today?
It's been all ups and downs, but ZoWorld has largely been my foray in the foot in the door kind of a thing with the Web3 space, right? So people were asking me to drop a token in 2016, 17. I was in Silicon Valley, I was in the Bay Area. The ICO bubble was going on, and I just said that I wouldn't do it. I just care about my reputation and community and everything. So I'll take my own sweet time, and I waited for a sweet time. Then I figured out that NFTs is a bit more consumer layer, so I'll take at least that plunge, and then we launched our NFTs, and that's been there. So I think once they started trading over 1 Ethereum, then even at 2 Ethereum, and so that was I feel after everything, right? So even we built ZoHouses, but where does the value accrue for that matter, right? It is about we have built a great network. It's a great network business, but can you bring the network value, that intangible network value, to tangible, right? And that's going to be the next challenge for us over the next decade, in which converting this tangible intangible value of community love into, let's say, some tangible dollars, and then giving it back to the community. That's the flywheel that we want to sort of make, and then people make ZoWorld themselves. And so I think once these NFTs traded over 1 Ethereum, or just for 2 Ethereum, I think that was a very proud moment, that we have been able to, hey, build an asset class which is even worth, let's say, a couple of $1 million. And even today, let's say they are point 0.8, point 0.9 Ethereum. So even today, let's say more than $1 million, even in today's down market. I'm very proud of small victories and small steps, because I think the first million, the first billion, the first trillion is the toughest one. And
Hmm.
so yeah.
Okay, all right. To that first million for
Hey,
Zoe and
cheers. Zo, zo,
cheers.
zo.
Okay, all right, cheers.
Mm.
So I see you're just chugging down some
I have
uh,
some Coke, yeah.
Coke. So it's fine. I'm having some. I'll do better than that. I'll drink. I'll have a shot of tequila to your 1 million first.
Zo world. Zo, zo.
Mhm. All right.